everyone, and welcome to Author Chat with Andrea. I'm your host, Andrea Rose Washington, and I am an indie author of Adelathea, the Olindo series, Amatry's Magic, and my favorite book, Journal. And today, I am chatting with the USA Today best-selling author, Jessica Cage. She is the author of the Tales of Nevaeh, the Jinn Rebellion series, and the Scorned by God series, and so many more. And I mean so many more. Like, I could name them all, so many more. Welcome, Jessica, and thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
um, I don't do this on everyone, but I will say I first saw you on TikTok. That's where I learned of you, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's killing it on TikTok. She's saying that us Black girls and us authors, we can actually kill it on TikTok. I saw her on TikTok, and then I met you at Virtuous Con, and I have been following you for about 3 years now, and I'm like shocked that it hasn't been 10. So I'm like catching up on all of your stuff. So I'm very stoked to talk to you today.
It's so strange that you say you found me on TikTok 3 years ago. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been 3 years. But yeah, like looking at the calendar, yeah, I started in 2020. That's insane. Oh my God.
It's and you have amassed such a huge following, and like I'm not gonna lie, I'd be taking notes like, oh shit, that video works well for her. Okay, I'm gonna just keep looking and getting notes, but we'll talk about that as we continue to chat a bit more.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, who are living under a rock, Jessica is a amazing author. She is a powerhouse, and I don't even know how she is. Like every day I'm on like social media and she has a new book coming out or a new series coming out or um collaborating with all these different authors, and it's just like, do you sleep? Like, I just really honestly have to know, do you sleep?
No. The short answer is no, I don't sleep. But it's very interesting because I've been talking to my therapist about that lately, and she's like, Jessica, you have to sleep. Like, your body is going to fall apart. So in the last like 2 weeks, yes, but prior to that, no, not really.
I guess, I mean, you're sacrificing for us fans, so I'm like, I want you to take care of yourself at the same time. Keep bringing those books.
Yes.
So, what made you decide to get into writing? It's because this is not an easy decision to decide. I'm going to put myself out there for everyone to judge and hope I have thick enough skin to withstand anything.
Yeah.
What made you decide
Um,
to get into it?
I decided to publish for, the public because I've been a writer since I was a kid. Like, it's ingrained in me. But I decided to actually publish my work when I was pregnant. I was working this factory job where I was making grinding stones. So like I was the person, and my abs were like amazing at the time, right? Because I'm on this machine like all day long. And then I got pregnant and I had this little baby inside of me, and I was like, I want to be the mom that's super encouraging and like tells him like, whatever you do, you want to do, whatever you dream, you can be. And then I felt like such a hypocrite, right? Because I was like writing this down, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to just tell him that I want to be an example for him. I want to show him that you can have this dream and you can take the steps and make that a part of your reality, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
here I am, this writer at my heart, and never having put out a thing besides like school competitions and things of that nature. Um, and I was like, if I'm gonna actually show my son that he can follow his dreams and have it all for himself, I have to at least try to do that for myself. And so I actually wrote my first book that I published predominantly while I was pregnant with my son. So I felt like I tell people I gave birth to two babies during that time. My
Yeah.
first book was The Hired Vampires, and then I published it about 3 months after my son was born. So
So you have been team no sleep for like a while then.
yeah, I mean, full time job, full time mommy, yeah, and writing whenever he would go to sleep, I would be like, I even bought like special keyboards that were like super quiet so that I could
Yeah,
type without waking the baby. So
I bought a clickety clack one.
Yeah, I have my clickly clack now. I have I love it because I don't care who hears it now. He's about to be 13. He's fine.
You can skip through it. You're good. I'm writing.
Right.
Uh, so tell us a little bit about your work, because you have about 3 or 4 series out now, plus a couple of collaborations. Um, and I have to say, I love that all of like I love you were one of the inspirations of making sure all of like the characters on my cover were gonna be Black, because we deserve that representation.
Yes.
And you have a lot of different series, and they all sort of fall under the fantasy realm, but they seem so vastly different from each other.
Yeah.
So I know you have the Siren series, which is the mermaids, and side note, I would love to be a mermaid one day. And
Yeah.
then you have the Jinn Rebellion. Tell us about your work. Like, how did you come up with these ideas for these vastly different stories?
They have all come to me in different ways. So the Gen Rebellion series started off when I was a little kid. Like I have been thinking about that story since I was about 12, maybe. It's inspired by the genie from Aladdin. I just kept wondering, like, what happens to him after Aladdin and Jasmine, die because they're immortal. And maybe that's a really like dark question to ask yourself at 12, but that's what I was wondering. I'm like, well, what happens to the genie when his friends are gone? And so I grew up and I wrote what I thought was going to be a short story, and it turned into what is now a 7-book series. But that question kind of lingered with me for a very long time until I wrote it. As far as the Siren series, that came to me in a dream. I kept dreaming of this red tail siren. And then I had a conversation at Printers Row, Chicago, which is like this big event with a bunch of authors. And they were talking about how there aren't a lot of like mermaid stories out there. And I was like, I've read a few. I don't know, maybe they're not looking, but I think they were thinking about mainstream mermaid stories. But I was like, I've been dreaming about this girl. I took that as a sign that I was supposed to write this story. And I think that was probably the best thing I did, because that was the first book that I published that got like acclaim, like it won awards. It's still to this day my best-selling title. No matter what I put out year over year, that series sells out everything else.
I need one of those series. That is actually really amazing though, because I love that. I love when I found out that you had a series revolving around mermaids. I fell in love with it just for the fact that it was mermaids, because I do agree with that person you spoke to. I don't really see a lot of mermaid stories out there. There are some, but are they always the main character? Are they the ones like being saved or being like searched by people on ships or whatever? Or is it like a version of the Little Mermaid? But this one is one that sort of it features us. It has our type of storyline on it, and it deserves to sell out year over year, because
I appreciate it every year. I'm like, yay. But it feels like it's so nice to think that I have created something that's evergreen, that people consistently want to read and share. And I get messages about it, way more often than I thought I would at this point. So, yeah.
So one of the books that I would like for you to chat about is your Telsonovia. If I'm saying it incorrectly, please let me know.
No, that's correct. Telsonovia. Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Jessica on TikTok, one of the first videos I saw of hers was maybe not the first one, but one of the early ones that I saw. Like there was this woman sitting in a chair and she had this very elaborate makeup on. And I'm wondering, why is this on my feed? Like it wasn't bad, but it's just like I was never that person. I was like, I haven't watched a single makeup tutorial. So why is this on my feed? And I mean, when I say elaborate, this girl looked like she was a whole nother character from a fantasy book. It was just out there. And then it cuts to Jessica and you see her typing and it's like a little scene up and you're just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like a little word prompt based off of a character. And you've had so many of those. And then out of nowhere, a book comes up that has a 4 series, all with different stories based off of these characters. And it's like, oh my gosh, this woman was actually writing stories.
I was.
off these little word prompts, what seemed like word prompts to me and to I guess everyone else, and until it was like, oh, it's a 4-book series coming out. What was this? Was this a plan, or was this a spur of the moment? I wrote a short story, and then I wrote another short story, and then I wrote another short story.
So it started out before the pandemic. I'm from Chicago, and I was sitting downtown. I got a lot of my inspiration for like side characters by sitting downtown in Chicago and people watching. Right. None of my main characters came to me like that. They was like, "Girl, no, you're gonna have to create me." But the other characters, I would just take notes about people's mannerisms, the way they move, they talk, their hairstyles, all this stuff. Pandemic happens, I can't do that anymore. So I started using TikTok for that. And then I started stitching people and like holding up a notebook and being like, don't mind me, I'm just taking notes. Like that's where this started, right? And then I was like, this person could be this person could be that. And then people start sliding in my DM like, okay, so where is the book, ma'am? Like you are, tantalizing us with all these ideas. Where is the material? But then I was like, well, that feels kind of weird because I've stitched people and I don't want to like promote something off of someone else's like just, time and energy. So I reached out to these creators and was like, do you mind if I do this, I'm going to link it to your people. Like we have a character profile book with all of their information and interviews and stuff that I did with them. I'm like, I want people to know, like, I got the inspiration for this character from you,
Okay.
And that was the most nerve-wracking thing I have ever done in my life, to go and reach out to these people. Like, do you mind? I would say all but 2 people responded to me. And I think it's because in the time that like went by, they blew up and they were like, had millions of followers, and they're probably like, girl, bad.
They're probably
But
like, oh man, I should have responded.
right. But they all said yes, or I should say all but 2 said yes. And then I just started writing it and sharing that process with the people at TikTok. Like I would sit on lives and I would have them name characters. I would have them, help me build the map out, because I did like the whole map creation with Incarnate, and I would share my screen, and it was just like a whole, community type project. It took about 18 months from like the first, me with the, pen and paper to actually writing the end on the actual story. So yeah.
I can definitely see how that is nerve-wracking, because when you are, I was like, as an author, you have like almost full control over like what you're writing in your books and your characters. And then in this instance, you're sort of giving a little control to someone else, and you're linking someone else like ideas and thoughts and wants to your story. I can definitely see how that could be nerve-wracking, because even though I knew you reached out to these people, in my mind it's just like, oh, that's easy. Then I'm thinking, oh, would you do that though? Would you send those messages to every single person and then do all the back and forth? And it's not just one person.
Yeah.
To everyone who's listening and whoever and whenever you guys watch this again, it's not just one person she reached out to. It's about, I think, 18, right? 18.
Yeah.
18. 18 different individuals of working with 18 different artists. And you know how we artists are. And I put authors into the artist category as well, because we are creating something from nothing.
Yeah.
And they're also trusting, 18 different people trusted you to also bring their character to life in a written format. That is a collaboration that I don't think I have seen in a way. Because like, you have comics and they turn that into movies, but never to where you see a piece of art and you're just like, you know what? You would make a great character. I'm going to write a book about you.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a story about your character.
It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to interview you. I had them like fill out this like character profile form so I could pick pieces of their true personality to like tie into the character. So like favorite foods, favorite colors, what kind of vibe, like music vibe, because your character is going to kind of move the way you would, if you're telling me you listen to bluegrass, I'm not going to write a hip hop character for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wanted to feel like you, so that when hopefully people read these stories, they fall in love with the character, they want to know who inspired it, they go to your page or your, wherever you are, and they find someone that's very similar to that character who they already fell in love with. So I try to get as close to that, as possible without being like, this is just that person on paper. Like, it still had to feel like this vampire is a vampire, but it was inspired by this, person on TikTok. So
just a question. Did they have veto rights over a story, or
no one asked for anything like that, which I was very happy for. If they would have been like, don't do this or don't do that, I would have been, okay, cool. But no one asked for anything like that. They were just like, for the most part, happy to be a part of it. And then of course, I sent them all like thank you baskets and, gifts and stuff because, I'm going to make money off of this in the long run. So I wanted to show my appreciation to them in some way. So
that is amazing.
yeah.
And also, again, this is why Jessica is now Team No Sleep, because I just, because this is also going into the whole TikTok conversation. You are on TikTok to an extent that I don't understand, in the sense of, how are you making this work for you? Because you, and I put myself into this category as one of the authors who are just trying to figure out how to be in front of the camera, because a lot of us are used to just writing the story and then, here you go, here's a book, read it, and then like other people will talk about it. But being in front of the story, in front of the camera, and being the story, so to speak, of catching people's eye, did you like take a course, or is this your natural charm, just like showing how awesome you are?
Honestly, TikTok gave me a way of like pulling another side of my personality into my marketing. When I was young, I was like, I'm going to be a stand-up comic. I'm going to be an actress, da 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 da. But then I learned what stage fright was. So I was like, I got to do this in front of people, like actual people who are supposed to look at me while I'm doing this. And so that didn't happen. I went away from that. But TikTok gave me that back. Like, I could be my goofy self in the safety of my own home, and then I could post it and run away, and if no one liked it, it was okay. Because I didn't have, it's not like people are like booing you through the phone, they just kind of scroll by. I mean, you have a troll or two here and there, but I haven't, really had to have a lot of interaction with trolls. But I have batch creation days where I will sit down and like for one day and just like record a ton of content. And then I just go throughout the week. When it's time to press post, I press post, and then I keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's the only way that I can make it work. But if I was like every day trying to sit down and create new content, I wouldn't write another word because it's so time consuming. It really is. That's why you'll see, like, if you go on my page, you'll see like blocks where I have like the same outfit on, the same shirt, because like I sat down on a Saturday and I recorded 17 videos, and I'm gonna post these 17 videos, and y'all gonna see the same orange shirt for 17 videos. And that's that. Like, it is what it is. You just have to create. It's kind of like you have to create a schedule that works for you, just like you do with your writing or anything else in this process. So,
well, speaking of process, because what I'm going to say, I'm going to maybe still, if you guys start seeing more TikToks, is because I'm taking Jessica's advice. Okay. She is dropping down nuggets, and I hope you guys are picking them up. But speaking of process, what is your writing process like? How do you make the time? Like, do you have an Excel sheet of like things blocked out? I'm working on this book, I'm working on this book, or is it all by inspiration?
I do have Excel sheets because I'm a nerd. So I do track the
I'm so
progress
happy
of
that you
each
said yes.
story. Listen, so I have them listed in the order in which I need to accomplish them, because if I don't do that, inspiration will take over and I'll be in a whole nother world with a deadline knocking down. So they're listed in the way that I need to knock them out. And then they have progress bars built into the Excel sheet. So like on another page, I'm putting in word counts and notes and stuff like that. And it's tallying up like how close I am to the finish line for each project. So I manage it very much like that. And then I do have my physical calendar planner that sits on my desk right here, where I actually like, I look at each day. Okay, this is what I have to do for clients. This is what I have to do for me. And I time block myself for the day. Make sure I put like mom time in there at least 2 or 3 times for my son. So it has to be very like on schedule. I won't say that I always stick to that schedule,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps to go into my day knowing what I'm expected to do. And most times I can get everything done. So
I am in awe of everything you're saying because I'm struggling to do like one book a year, and you're coming out with like I need to be like you. So do
no,
you?
so I posted like mid-January, like I just wrote the end for the first time in 2023, and Antoine Bandelay,
Mhm.
he jumped in my comment section like, "What? Like, what do you mean?" And I'm like, I'm literally writing at this point 35 to 40,000 words per week. That's like my output now if I'm consistently sticking to the plan. Um, Sometimes it's a little less,
You need
sometimes
your
it's a little
brain.
more, but with all the projects that I have in my brain and all the commitments that I'm always saying yes to, like I have to get these words done. I just have to. So
So who sets your deadlines then for you? Do you set it yourself? Do you? So you're putting yourself on these like tight deadlines and everything.
yeah. So I have my deadlines, and then like I do anthologies and stuff like that where I have a short story due here and there.
Hmm.
And I use those as kind of like framework for my own deadlines because like I have to get my stuff done so I can focus on that deadline. And that makes me, stick to my guns. Because before I was like, I'm indie, I can just change it.
Hmm.
But that's a very bad habit to get into doing, is being like, I'm indie, whatever. You have to treat this like it's your business. Like this is what I want to do, and I'm very grateful that I get to spend the majority of my days doing what I love. I
Hmm.
need to be consistent with that, and I need to be uh, tough with myself when it comes to my schedule, or nothing will get done. It just won't. I like naps far too much to not have a schedule.
I and here I am thinking my little Asana to-do list reminders amazing, and you have a full on oh.
But I've been doing this for 13 years. So if I was at 13 years and I didn't have like a fully
Gotcha.
fleshed out process for myself, that would be a problem. You know what I mean? So I had to figure out through trial and error what works for me over the years.
Great words, because we all need to be a little bit better in scheduling. I'm speaking to myself right now.
No, there was one week I had a whole like breakdown because I forgot to fill out my schedule for the week. Like I usually do it on Sunday. I came
Hmm.
in my office on that Monday and I looked at it. I was like, what am I doing this week? That was the worst week. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. I was late to everything. I was like, I have gotten myself to a point now where I have to fill that schedule out or nothing works. It just doesn't.
These are things I am taking notes for myself. Yes. So is there anything actually no, I'll go to that question later. So what has been your experience then so far? Because you said you've been doing this for about 13 years. You have one of the largest categories that I know of for an indie author. I think I only know one other person whose catalog is like similar to yours and the amount of books.
Mhm.
Um, what has been your experience in this indie world as being a honestly front runner for Black women, for authors, for indie authors? What has that been like for you so far?
There was a lot of comparison because like the thing that I'm seeing is there are so many people like your catalog is so huge, but I know people who have catalogs that are 3, 4 times the size of mine, and they started at the same time as me. But I had to that whole process of comparing yourself to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I had to look at it like I'm a single mom with a kid and a full-time job and da 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 da. They are married with a whole husband, funding their lifestyle, and they don't have no kids. You know what I mean? So it's like I had to take a step back early on and decide like, am I doing this just so I can say I did it? Am I doing this because it's what I really want? I started because of my son, but it's like that can't be the only reason I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So my process or my journey was very slow those first like 4 to 5 years. And then after the success of my first book in the Siren series, I was like, oh, I can actually do this. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can really sit down and make this something real. And then in 2016, I rebranded everything. I was like, this is a business. This is what I want to do. And I feel like I used to kick myself because when I started publishing in 2010 was when indie publishing really kind of took off because of KDP. Like that
Mm-hmm.
whole, world blew up. And I feel like for a while I kicked myself. I'm like, you wasted 6 years where you could have been killing the game. But I was also 22. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're young and naive and you think, whatever, everything's going to come to me easily. I don't have to really work for it, da, da, da. So when I started to rebrand and really think of this as a business and as something that I really want to take seriously, that's when the shift happened. That's when I started to see the genuine like ride or die readers coming to me and the opportunities coming for me. So I was like, okay, this is great. But there's still this like barrier because I'm this Black woman with these books with Black characters on it. And I was like, at every event, you go to these book signings, you're like, and you can see the look in people's eyes like, oh, them Black people. You know what I mean? And even
Mm-hmm.
from the Black readers, sometimes it was like they didn't want to be seen
Mm-hmm.
coming to the Black table, right? So then I had to find out where's my space in this because just because it's a reader event doesn't mean my readers are there. So I went through a struggle of just trying to find my readers. And then WakandaCon happened. Well, after the first Black Panther came out, they had WakandaCon in Chicago. And that was one of the first time I felt like, oh wow, okay, my readers are here. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say that event being there, I was pulled in on a panel. Like I wasn't supposed to be in nobody's panel. I was just supposed to be in the artist alley, selling my little books. I was supposed to be in the back of the artist alley because I signed up late. They put my table at the front door, like when people came in. And when I tell you, I sold out and I was on panels and I like it really just shifted my world. And I was like, oh, okay. But I was so happy that I took the time to like rebrand and rebuild and do what I needed to do so that I could be prepared for that moment when all these readers came to me and they were like, "Oh, we love your stuff." So I will say I've had quite a few moments of like, okay, I could do this better. I could do this stronger. It has been a journey of learning and growth, and then learning to be nice to myself about information I didn't know or that at one point in my life, I wasn't really open to asking the questions that needed to be asked because I'm the oldest daughter and I'm going to do everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need anybody's help.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of the first, I would say, 6 years of my career was a lot of me combating with myself to get to the point where I can go out and be the person that can inspire and give, advice to other people and help other people come into this.
That is amazing. That is because I think a lot of authors go through that of one figuring out where you fit in. It's and there's nothing wrong with not fitting into every space because not everyone's gonna like every book. Like I had this conversation with a couple friends, like, am I going to any anime conventions? And I was like, no, because those are not my people. I have nothing against anime, but my books aren't geared for what the people who are there are looking for. And not to say
Mhm.
that they may not be interested, but I'm just going to go where I know my readers could possibly be. If I knew that WakandaCon happened, I might have wanted to go to that one, but I didn't know. I'm gonna keep an eye out for other cons like that. Um, but it
And
is.
I'm so sad because I don't think they're doing it anymore. They did it twice and then COVID happened. And so I don't think they gained enough footing,
Mhm.
to really bounce back from COVID. So
But it is a scary and vulnerable situation to put yourself in. And then yeah, you do go into the whole situation of I need to act like I at least know more than what I do because I don't want someone to try and take advantage. I don't want someone to be like, "Oh, she's new to the circuit. We can just tell her how it is for us so that way she acts how we want her to act." It is a lot going into this and it's okay to ask for help
yeah.
um and I stress the word help and not always hand holding because sometimes like I can't walk you through it because you do need to learn on your own, but I can give you my advice on what I did only just because what works. I firmly believe what works for one person may not work for someone else, but asking for help is never is never a problem. And we do need to learn to do that a little bit more because
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of people get caught up in that fake it till you make it, and
Hmm.
they latch on to the fake it part, and it's like, no, girl, you're supposed to show up confident, but you're still supposed to ask questions and like
Yeah.
learn what you're doing. So I was faking it for a very long time without doing the extra work to get, to the making it part. And
Hmm.
then I found myself surrounded by people who had these very negative like ideas about publishing, and like I'm like, I've never been the type of person to sit around complaining and not look for solutions. But
Yeah.
because I surrounded myself with those type of people, I found myself doing that. You know what I mean? So I had to chop a lot of people out of my like my office here, because I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna move forward if I have you naysaying in my ear, every other day talking about how this is crap and nothing's gonna get better. It's because we're black, da 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 da. It's like, or
Mhm.
maybe it's because we're not marketing our material. Maybe it's because we need better editors. Maybe it's because we need,
Invest in editors and understand edit, like it's an investment that's very much needed.
and I recently posted a blog on my website about how editing was one of the biggest issues for me, like coming into this, because I could afford what I could afford basically.
Hmm.
And every time I would come out, I would try to afford a little bit more, but I could afford what I could afford. And so I delisted a ton of my back catalog, like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And I was like, no one will, I'll fix them and I'll re-release them. But now that I'm coming out with stronger, cleaner content, I don't want people to go from a Tales of Venovia to a book and be like, oh, who the heck wrote these two books? Like, it's two different people. So I delisted a bunch of stuff, but I'm so worried about editing. And then I signed with Webtoon for their new reading app Yonder. And I was like, this is going to be the cleanest thing I ever did see. There's going to be no errors. Why did somebody find a typo? It has 4 editors. I say, how is there a typo?
So I get emails because I'll say this, for my first book, Adelathea, I was blessed. And I call this a full on blessing because I was like straight out of college. I was like, people are going to forgive a grammatical mistake or two. And I had worked at this wedding venue for like the summer for my externship. And I met an editor there. And she was also working at the venue helping out a friend because her friend owned it. And she's like, no. She's like, you are a smart young woman. Your story's amazing. I'm gonna edit it for you for free. And so that was the first one I ever did. And she edited it, and it was like, oh, I thought I knew words. Just because you can speak English doesn't mean you can type English.
Right?
um,
It's like,
and
I'm a great storyteller, but
yeah,
don't ask me about where no commas go, because
yeah.
I will lead you wrong every time.
And then my second book, I had a friend, like one of my best friends. She was my editor, and then I had published it because, like, I refuse to believe I know it. I will never say, when people ask me to read their stuff, I calmly tell them I will read it for content. I will not read it for mistakes because
Yeah.
I will not catch the mistakes because I'm sorry. Like, I have let a lot of author friends know that. It's like, if you want me to read it for content, I got you. If you want me to run it through Grammarly, I got you. If you want me to be the editor, I can't help you. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. And I had a friend read it. I had ran it through Grammarly because I couldn't afford another editor, and I was not going to ask this woman to, like, hey, can you do this for free again? And I had someone on Twitter reached out to me and was like, can I just edit your book, please?
So that's how my first editor came to me. She read my first book and she was like, I love the story, but and I was like, oh. But she was so sweet about it. And she worked with me on different projects. And then eventually was like, so when are we going to go back and fix that one? Because I felt she wanted to do it for free. And I was like, that's a lot of work.
Mhm.
But we worked together for years. And I mean, honestly, she helped me put out cleaner content. But again, it wasn't the cleanest because I didn't have an actual process. And she was doing her best with me. Like and I think a lot of people think like, oh, the editor is going to catch it all. Like, if you don't have a working like proofreading and polishing process after editing, mistakes still will slip through. And that's what happened with a lot of my early work. Like my editors did their thing, but like afterwards, it was like, okay, I would go through and review and I'd be like, cool, good to go. No proofreader. Like it was
Mhm.
just like, and publish, you know? And now it's like, oh, my work goes through stages now and it comes out a whole lot cleaner on the other side. Is it error free? No, I don't think that's possible, honestly, at this point, especially after what I went through with the editing process with Yonder to come
Mhm.
up with Winter Sin, and there are still typos. You know what I mean?
Um,
I was like, "What do you mean you found a typo?"
I firmly believe if you found a typo, it was meant to be there. I meant to tell the story that way. That
Yep,
you didn't find a typo.
that's
That's
what I
just how
meant for
they
it to say.
speak.
They didn't mean kids; they meant kinds. What are you talking about?
It is editing as an indie author is a experience that I think we all learn. We all get our hands slapped, and we all are like, okay,
We'll do
we need to
better.
learn and do
I think
better
all
moving
that
forward.
matters is that you continue to do better. Like
Yes.
build, like I said, it took me 13 years, well, not completely, but it took me like a decade to come up with a process that I'm proud of and I feel like is actually putting out the type of content that I want to put out. And now, okay, I have to go back and fix a decade of work, but I'm okay with that.
And the beauty is for anyone who bought it electronically, like on Amazon or like Barnes, like if you when you
Yep,
re-upload the new manuscript, no one has to buy a new book.
just go in there and hit update and they would just send it
Fix
up
it for you.
nice and pretty for you.
But yes, I definitely agree. Finding a process that works for you um, is very important.
Mhm.
So, is there anything new that you're working on that people will expect to see? I know you're working on something new because you already just said you said the end in 2023. Is there like 10 more other new things you're working on this year?
So right now the focus is finalizing edits and things for Siren's Capture, which is the fourth book to that Siren series. I thought that series was done. That's why book 3 was called Siren's End, because
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to be the end. But Homegirl came back, 5 years later, like, so I got more to say. So book 4 is coming out in April, and then I have some new projects that are launching. I'm launching a book about a pair of lesbian fae assassins who are like trying to kill this high crazy vampire dude. And then I have my shared world collection, so I do create worlds and then I invite other authors to write in it. This will be my second shared world that we're launching this summer. It's called The Eldritch Trials, and it is 8 Black women writing 8 powerful Black women. It's a dark fantasy, new adult, and adult series. So each book in the collection is written by a different author. It's been so much fun working with these women. I'm so excited for these stories to come out. And this one we're doing a little different because we're going to have like crossover scenes between the different books where the characters actually interact with each other. I think that was one of the biggest points of like people being like, when do we see them work together? So
Mm-hmm.
what we'll see the crossover scenes, and then I mean we're gonna have all this like extra like interactive fun stuff to go along with it, just to have it more of a connected experience. I do my share worlds a lot different than most people do theirs. Like typically you'll get like a concept and they'll be like, this is what we're doing, go right. But and then no one talks to each other until it's time to publish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, for mine, we literally work together for almost 2 years. Um, so that we know that what we're putting out is a cohesive world that characters and our readers can like not be like these books don't go together. You know what I mean? Like I want the reader to feel like they are in the same world. They understand that the political structures, the technology, everything works together. Even like the creatures, like we create these crazy creatures and they go in between different stories. So it was really fun. And then I have so many other. I could sit here forever telling you the laundry list of stories and stuff, but I have a lot coming, and I'm super excited. And I'm also going to be working on an author craft series. So I'm going to be putting out some materials to help new authors who want to like do stuff like how do I get on TikTok and do stuff, stuff like that. So
I'm not a new author, but when that goes live, let me know.
I will,
I feel like a new author every time I'm on TikTok. Like, what are words? What am I doing?
The worst part is like, write this blurb about this story, and it's like, what? Like, I wrote 100,000 words, but don't tell me to sum it up in 20. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, we don't have the time to talk about blurbs and the horribleness of trying to condense 100,000 words, like you said.
Do you use the blurb formula?
A friend of mine, my best friend, she and I, we will talk the story back and forth, and we'll consistently get shorter and shorter and shorter until it becomes the blurb. I always practice at a Comic-Con, what is your elevator pitch? And that's a version of that becomes a longer version of that becomes the blurb.
Yeah.
And so that's how I figured out how to do my blurbs. But the first time I had to do a blurb, I was like, I spent a year writing this book. What do you mean I have to put it in 2 paragraphs?
Yeah.
What?
I use a specific formula now because I know when I started using it, I realized the conversion was a lot stronger. Like people going to the page, reading the blurb, and then buying the book. It got so much stronger after I started using that formula with the hook and, the call to so many technical terms. But yeah, I still don't like it, even with a formula. Like I know what I'm supposed to write, but like the words still have to get into the formula.
So we are coming down to our last question of the chat. To the people who are watching, if you do have a question or two, quick questions, so feel free to throw them into the chat. But as we are winding down, one question. Oh, actually, no, we have 2 questions. I didn't do the famous con question with you. And the famous con question is, which book is your favorite book? I get access at every single convention, and it's like asking me which child I love more. Like we all have an answer, but we can't say it out loud. But I'm asking you to say it out loud.
Because they're like right there. They're gonna hear me.
Or okay, which one was your most fun to write?
So I get, we get asked this question so many times, and I always say, I feel like I am the most connected with the Siren series because that was the series, not just because it did well, but because I identified my voice as a writer when I wrote that story. I feel like when we first start off, we're just kind of like, I really loved LA Banks, so I'm kind of trying to sound like her, and I really like Twilight, and I want to pull that in. So we're trying to figure out what our voice is, and then you have this moment where you're writing, and you're like, this is me. This is my voice. This is my message. I've got into a flow, and this is my true storytelling. And it was such a rewarding feeling to have my true storytelling be the book that really, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it went home with people, and people were like, I love this and I love you. So I don't know that I will ever have a series that feels the way that series feels to me. That's like home to me now.
I completely understand. I have a book just like that. And this funny thing, it is my best-selling book. No matter where I go, that book outsells everything else. And it was the one where I felt like I was the main character in the sense of she was me, I was her.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone else is a version of me, but this one was me. That's such a beautiful thing. I think I have the Siren series on my Kindle. I'm going to have to download it on my phone because I leave my Kindle at work now because I can't be carrying too many tablets. We do have a question in the chat from Ella Aurora 77. Any advice on where to go or do for tips on how to write your first book?
So where to go, as I mean, there's so many sources of, just at this point, you can type into Google and go anywhere for tips, right? But I feel like you need to find a community that feels supportive, and that's gonna take time. You know what I mean? If you're just looking for support in your effort of writing your book, having a writing community, and a good one, a supportive one, a progressive one, and one that's going to come with solutions and not complaints. Like my early community was full of complaints and no solutions. Finding a good writing community to be a part of and having people to bounce those questions off is great. And then like there's so many, there's so much out there, right? Like I even have a writers group where people can get in my group and ask me questions, and we do sprints together and stuff like that. If you're just looking for like a place to go, I say find something like that. As far as tips, there's that's such a loaded question. Because it's like I say stay true to your characters, do the research, and make sure that you research your genre that you're trying to write in, and then the audience that you're writing for. Because once you understand who you're writing for and what they expect from your material, it becomes a lot easier to deliver that.
Mm. I am a firm believer of YouTube and Google when it comes to understanding how sites work, understanding how KDP works, understanding how Ingram works, understanding how Draft to Digital works,
Mm-hmm.
and listening and watching the reviews and watching them. Like I when I first started with KDP, I watched YouTube videos of people who made stuff from like 3 years ago all the way up until a week ago to see how the perception of the site changed, to see how multiple authors were dealing with it. Um, and I watched male, female, all people of all races, all of their different videos, besides just reading what the site puts out about their own stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, I don't know if you were on at the time, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for someone else, depending on what you are able to do. And always, there are two things every indie author has to save for and invest on. And that is a cover artist and that is an editor. Like before you do it, like your book cannot, and you're speaking to someone who put a book forward without an editor. You cannot you cannot go forward without a cover artist and an editor. An editor is more than likely is always more expensive than a cover artist. You can always find someone who's a really affordable, good cover artist, but
Mm-hmm.
an editor is a good editor sometimes runs you at least $1,000. Just to let you know, like
Yeah.
minimum.
I
So
love how we're all like an editor. Like every indie author that I have these conversations with, we're all like, get a good editor.
like
We're all traumatized by our early books. Like, don't do what I did.
like I it do not I've already re-released the Lindle after it got edited, and it was just like hi people, you know how like I published that book like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone reached out, was like no. So like if you are a saver, if you're like, start researching companies for that as well, and like get the average price and start saving up for that, because depending on if you use Amazon, depending if you use Draft to Digital, is never really going to cost you anything up front to publish. Ingram costs some stuff up front. So like I am an avid believer of like watching YouTube videos and reading everything about the site, because
Yeah.
you need to know what you're getting into before you start. And sometimes people explaining it to you, I explain how I do it, but I might miss a step that you might really need. So
Mhm. And like with Ingram, like at least once a month they're giving out a free code so you can do free setups. I wait for those codes. Like, all right, go. Because yeah, can I afford the $50? Sure. Do I want to give them that? Absolutely not, because that could go towards editing.
yes. um Ingram, that's a whole nother side conversation.
Listen,
That's an offline conversation how I feel about them. And that $50. Another conversation for later. So our last question of the day, of this evening, before I go and try to be like, that's okay, and print out 40,000 words a week. And going off of how I say what works for one person doesn't always work for someone else. What advice would you give your past self? So yourself 13 years ago, before she published the first book, what is some piece of advice you wish you would have known if you didn't already say
don't do it yet. Like,
it?
I would just honestly tell my former self to have patience, and to be nicer to herself, um, and to carry. It took me a while to kind of reach back into my memory to something my grandmother told me when I was a little girl, and carry that with me. But she told me not everyone is gonna like you, but
Mhm.
that's not supposed to dull your shine. If
Yeah.
I could go back to myself
Mhm.
before hitting publish and just whisper that into her ear, like, it's okay, you're gonna make mistakes. Get an editor, save up and get an editor. Like if there was just send yourself one note, I would be like, save and get an editor, like a real one, like for real, like edit. But no, just be patient with yourself and do. I would say, like, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, you're a problem solver. You've been here, you've been taking care of everyone else. This is something that you're doing for yourself. So be kind to yourself about it. Like, don't be because like I said early on, I was very hard on myself. I would beat myself into the ground over the smallest things. Um, so I think ultimately that would be my message. Like, just it's okay. It's gonna take some time, but you'll get there. And yeah, just hug your son and be nicer to you.
That is great advice. I wish I would have known that advice. Be patient, because a lot of us expect we hit publish overnight for J.K. Rowling. No,
That's
you're
I'm
not.
Yeah, and then again, like I said, like there's a point of comparison because, like, even now I see people who have published their first book and they're like, they take off with that first book. But it's like, I don't know what they did to get to that first book publishing like that.
Mhm.
They were submitting stories for 15 years. Like, you didn't submit one story, Jessica. You know what I mean? I've never submitted to a publisher ever. So it's like reminding yourself that their journey is not your journey. And you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
didn't even that wasn't even an option in your brain until you saw them being successful with it. And I think that's what a lot of people get caught up in. Like, you see someone being successful at something that you never considered doing in that way, and then you're beating yourself up because you're not successful over there, but you never even wanted to be over there. You know what I mean?
Like,
Chill
that
out.
was never a door you wanted to enter. Why do you
You
care
didn't
now?
even know that door existed. What are you so upset about?
But that is such a good point. Being patient and not comparing. Because if I could have, I think I've been writing for about 5 to 6 years, and I have 3 books out, 4 books out. Oh, 5 books. Wait, yes. Okay, I'm moving up.
You start to lose count after a while.
I forgot about a Lindo sequel, and I forgot about the journal. But being patient with yourself and not comparing, because I did do that a lot. I had like, you know what? I'm not them, and it's okay that I'm not them, and they're not me, and that's okay too.
That's okay.
Um, Great advice. It was a great chatting with you. But that is all the time that we have tonight. So I will be uploading this audio to Spotify it'll be up this Friday, which is March something, I think the 3rd. Uh, uh, this is live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. So you can always find the videos there. They will be I will highlight them so the videos will always be available. I will update the descriptions with Jessica's link information, so where you can find all of her mini works. Because when I tell you, this woman, like every time I go to her social media, there's something new. There is something new, and like, you could read her stuff for a year and still never read the same thing twice. Like, she's that great. But I'll put her information in the description. I'll update it. And thank you for watching and listening to Author Chat with Andrea. And Jessica, thank you for being here again.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
This was really fun. And I am Andrea Rose Washington. Thank you to everyone who was here to watch live. And I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.